Hello, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Your Story. In this episode, Miss Kia Fields, current Bywood Home and School President and overall wonderful Upper Darby community member, has decided to take me up on my offer to tell her story to us and to our community.
My name is Kia Fields. I am the parent of Nia Laura Fields and Nathaniel Fields. My daughter goes to Bywood and my son is going to BH in the fall.
Well, you're in good hands. I used to be the principal at Bywood Elementary School back in the day.
Awesome.
So today is really about your story. And what I want our teachers, our administrators, our community, anybody who's associated with our school district to understand is we all have our own story. We all have our own hopes, our own dreams, our own setbacks. And how can we relate to each other better? We have much more in common than we don't. Right. And I find that coming out of this pandemic, is certainly after the last several years, there seems to be this divisive rhetoric that we're not alike, that we don't have things in common. Whether it's your religious views or your political views, there's more of a dividing concept than there is a unifying concept. So I guess if you can, and you feel comfortable, and thank you for being here, a little bit about your story. And I'm going to dig a little bit, if you don't mind. You could always say, whoa, too far. But tell me your life's journey, your story. Who are you?
Okay, I am Kia Fields. I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia. I moved to West Philadelphia when I was a teenager. I attended Overbrook High School. I attended Pepper Middle School, and I graduated from Temple University. I am married. I have 2 children. And I have a background my degree is in community health education from Temple University, so I've did a lot of case management, social work, and I've been in the field for over 25 years, just out there helping fragile children and families, trying to just get their lives back together, be rehabilitated or reunited rather through foster care system, and I don't know what else you want to add.
All right, so that's good.
Okay.
So I'm going to pull this apart a little bit, okay? So you're an Overbrook High grad.
Yes.
Famous area. I think if you're from Delaware County and you have parents or grandparents that are from here, I think you'd be happy to know just about everybody's associated with Overbrook at some time. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree.
I mean, around this area, I have family who lived or from or around Overbrook.
Okay.
There's a connection, right? There's a relationship connection there. But tell me what led you to Temple University and to take the approach academically that you took, your studies. What led you to the field that you studied?
I changed my career twice, actually. I went in with the thought of being a physical therapist. And then I thought at one point, being honest, I thought the courses were a little too challenging. So I had an amazing counselor that talked to me that said, "You're very social. I like the way you always helping other students around here organize and get their rosters together. Have you ever thought about community health education?" I said, "What is that?" So when she explained to me that I could go out into the community and educate people on various health issues from breast cancer awareness to diabetes, and I was like, oh wow, I really like it. So as I began to take the courses, I became very interested. So it all ties into physical education and health education. So I've been doing that ever since. Although it started out with working with children with behavior problems, and 20 years ago, I would have never associated behavior problem as a health issue until as I've grown in the field. So working with children in that respect and getting them therapy and getting them the services that they need, I really grew to love the position and stayed committed for over 25 years.
So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and make sure I get to these 2 points. Okay. Point number 1 is you shared something that's important for me, which is someone identified a strength that you had, right? That you were social,
yes.
You were good with people,
yes.
And you were a helper.
Yes.
A teacher did that.
Yes.
Okay, so somebody identified your strength. Point number 2, you brought up this idea that you originally started to work with kids who had behavior problems. Correct. Right? So point number 1, you have a strength. Point number 2, you work with kids who had behavior problems. So I want to start with point number 1. Adversity, right? You said you wanted to go into some kind of physical therapy path, and it was academically challenging.
Yes.
When you were told or you were made to feel, whether it was through grades, and I don't need to know that, whatever it was, that there was this barrier, this roadblock, how did you originally feel when that barrier came before you?
I just didn't feel confident. To be honest with you, I just didn't think that those courses. And then at Temple University, you had to apply to the PT school. So it was kind of like, how do I know I'm going to get that seat? So I wanted a plan B, actually. And I said I would revisit physical therapy in the future. But once I got so involved in helping families, I liked where I was at that point.
Where did you learn this idea of, you know what, there might be a barrier or an obstacle here. I'm not going to shut down. I'm going to go down another path, versus the trauma that people face when they hit that barrier. So some people along the way in their life, when they face adversity, they crumble.
Right.
And they run from it, or they throw in the towel.
Right.
Here you are, you've had this vision since you were a little kid. This is what I want to be, here's how I want to get there. But you know what? There's a little bit of an obstacle and a barrier. Instead of, tucking my tail and running the other way, there's another path for me, or another option, or I'm going to be, creative enough to recognize I'm still going to succeed somehow, some way with the talents that I do have. Where's that come from for you?
Family values. It comes from my family. We're strong people. We're survivors. We make it happen, and we stick together.
And you seem positive and happy.
Always.
Where's that come from?
I don't like to be angry and hold grudges. I'm human. I guess I do have my moments, but I don't like to stay in that place because it's not comfortable for me.
So was that something that you were taught from an early age, or is it something that you were just born with?
I would say taught and emulated. My grandmother was just, I didn't think she had a mean bone. So I was always around her, my paternal grandmother, and when she took ill, she was the first one in our family to take ill. So when we started caring for her, then my grandfather, then I became that family member who, if someone became ill, I wanted to help take care of everybody. So that nurturing and caring, and you have to be positive if you're seeing people in their ailing stages and dementia stages like that or whatever. So you have to stay positive to make them have a quality of life while you're taking care of them.
So you seem like an unbelievably good-hearted, happy person. And what I'm hearing from you is you didn't run from the adversity that you faced.
No.
You know what compassion and empathy is, and you've learned those things by experiencing this hardship and trauma from other people.
Yes.
And instead of using that as a negative, you've channeled that into a way to give back and as a way to move your life forward.
Yes.
Let's turn into point number 2. Remember what point number 2 is that I wanted you to remind me of?
Tell me again.
Behavior in students.
Yes.
Right? The kids that you've worked with in your career, if they were to have faced the barrier that you faced or the obstacle that you faced, how do they react compared to how you've reacted?
Some crumbled and some didn't. So I had various stories, like I said, I've been in the field for a long time. So I just did my part in just being very supportive to them and giving them examples, and I share stories. People like to hear Me Too stories. And I don't just go in as just a social worker with the pen and the paper. I put those things to the side and I say, hey, I grew up in West Philly. I grew up in Southwest. I get it. I lived in ghetto areas, if you will, or the hood, as people would say, if that's politically correct to say. But I've experienced that. I wasn't always a Temple grad. So I know what it's like. And that also builds that connection and trust. And I still have a lot of kids that still stay in contact with me to this day.
When you, these students were communicating to others through their behavior, because I believe that when kids act out, all kids, sometimes 20-year-old kids,
Oh, yes.
they're really communicating in a way. Like, I don't know how to express my emotions and my feelings the way that people think is good.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I'm communicating that I have a need that's not being met, and I need help. And it sounds like what you've described is that compassion and empathy from what you've learned from taking care of people. It's no different than when you're dealing with a student or a child that has a, quote, behavior problem.
Right.
So talk to me about that. How did you get those students? Because I know along the way, I'm in education, you've worked with all kinds of families. Not every story is a success story.
Right.
So tell me the success stories and where there weren't success stories.
One of my success stories I'll share, there was a young lady where her mother and father had some issues, some adversity that they were going through. They were a beautiful, loving family, but substance abuse was in the way. And she was the oldest from that union, although her parents came into that relationship with other children, but she was the oldest from that union. And she just could not deal with when mom left the house. And she was really going through it, like terrorizing the school, the whole nine. And she'd had several one-on-one workers working with her. And she would do anything she could to sabotage the relationship so that they could leave, and she thought she could handle it. So they asked me, when one of my cases had ended, would I be willing to work with her? And she was bigger than I was. And they were a little afraid because they thought because she would throw trash cans at some of the workers or whatever she could to express herself. So I said, I'll give her a try. I said, I used to see her walking through the hallways, and she would always come to me and play in my hair and always tell me that I was pretty and things like that. So we already had some connection, although I didn't work with her. So I said, I'll give her a try. So when I started working with her and just being comfortable with her, not unprofessional, but just relaxed and just not coming in with the, why did you do this to these workers? Why did you do this? What are you going through? I just allow her to talk, allow her to share what she was going through. And I worked with her through that process. And I mean, it was a struggle. Like, she went through maybe like 5 or 6 workers. The teachers were like, what else can we do with her? And the school that she attended, a lot of children, it was a school for behavioral and emotional disturbances. A lot of children don't make it out of that school. She did, with my help. So I worked with her until she was able to go back to her neighborhood school and graduate. She's married with 2 beautiful children. She's a business owner, and she's still doing extremely well.
And what would you say if you could point out 1 or 2 things that kind of bridge that gap for her? What would you say you can point to?
I just stayed connected, and as I said earlier, like sharing stories of my own, you know, family, not getting too personal, but letting her know that she's not out here by herself. She's not the only one whose parents separated or had substance abuse issues. She's not the only one that remember, hence her school that she attended. Everybody's going through something. And I let her know how important and valued she was.
It's so funny, you know, this is going to come across a unique way, but just humor me for a second. My dad calls me regularly, and I feel like as the middle child, I've tried to do everything I can to make my parents proud of me.
Okay.
You know, like my life's journey has been to always gain their, like, we're proud of you, way to go. And along the way, my dad has this humbling concept where, you know, the people who really care about you the most are me and mom and your siblings. The vast majority of the people, not so much. Right. And oh, by the way, remember, you're only really special to us. You're not really that special to anybody else. So don't think you're that special.
Yes.
In a way, it was this humbling, grounding attitude of, dude, you're not that special. Knock it off. Right. Don't get full of yourself. Around here, you might be okay. But out there, you know, don't get ahead of yourself. And I think about that when, in the opposite context of when people experience trauma or when these kids experience these things, they want to push the responsibility off onto somebody else instead of saying, you're not that special. Everybody has going through traumatic things or difficult things and facing that adversity. The sooner you come to grips with that reality and you start to think about how I can get through it, the better off you're going to be. Right. And so I wonder if that young woman seeing you and seeing that you've accomplished so much is an inspiration.
Yes, she tells me all the time. She had me as...
Well, don't be humble here. I mean, this is...
When she got married, she had me sit at the table with her mother and father as the second mother of the bride.
Wow. What about a time when it didn't go so well?
With her or any...
Just anybody.
Okay, I had a little boy that was just very difficult to work with. And I don't know if I can say this on camera, so I just want to be correct. I don't think his mother was comfortable with me as an African-American being his worker. And he showed that. And I just couldn't reach him in the classroom, and I tried everything that I could. I even asked the teacher, I said, well, do I need to sit back? But he was a child that needed someone to sit close by. But he would do things that would make me uncomfortable that I knew that I didn't have to welcome. So I just decided that that wasn't the case for me because I did all that I could. I was there, I was present. I talked to him in calm voices and things like that or whatever and tried to meet up, but
Yeah, and we don't know what that person's story and journey is.
Right.
But there were barriers thrown up that it was made pretty clear to you that because you're an African American woman, we can't work together.
Right.
And that's sad.
It is very sad. It's very sad because he clearly needed the assistance. And I don't think I'm the end all be all, but I know what I'm doing and I love what I'm doing. So I'm very compassionate about what I do. So I wasn't going to harm him, but because of the color of my skin, I couldn't work with him.
How'd that make you feel?
Again, I'm very strong, so and resilient. So I still am human too, but it did bother me a little bit, but I know the world we live in, so.
Yeah, to me, that's part of the problem with the world that we live in right now, right? Like sitting here with you, I'm a white dude,
Yeah, right.
clearly. And I worry about in today's environment, there's this idea that people can't get along.
Right.
Right? You know, and so I have 3 sons, and I don't want them to ever think or see they can be a friend or associate in there. I think there's hope in that environment, right? That you can build those relationships to see people. Because when it comes down to it, if somebody loves you and cares about you, has compassion for you, is going to be there for you, who doesn't want that person on your team?
Right.
So Key, I'd take you on my team any day of the week. I could use a lot of people to have.
That's why I put my children in so many activities. My son is with Cub Scouts, my daughter's with Girl Scouts. We did soccer, we swam, we did a lot of things through Upper Darby. Whereas before, when my son was younger, we were doing a lot of things in Philly because that was my roots. And then I said, no, we need to utilize what's in our community. This is where we live. So I try to get them exposed, and they're on the team with all walks of life.
Yep.
And they do things that other cultures do and that we do, and we just blend together. Is it always great? But it's not horrible. So you have to learn from one another, grow, and keep it going. And I want to continue to bring my children around different cultures and make them well diverse.
If your story, you know, at the end of your book, at the end of the story that you create, your life story, do you feel like you've kind of met what your goals were, that you feel happy? Do you feel like you've accomplished what you want to accomplish in life, or is there more for you to accomplish?
There's more, and there's always room for growth to do things, but I had a chance. I'll go back. I have a 28-year-old that I adopted when she was 11 years old, so I changed her life as well. And it was rocky, but we did it. And then I got married, and then I had 2 children of my own. My father walked me down the aisle. My mother was there. My siblings was there. I've traveled. I've met a lot of people. So I feel good with my life, but I know there's other things out there that I have never been exposed to that I would love to be a part of. But I do feel fulfilled. You
feel that you're content? I mean, obviously there's all kinds of things we'd all like to do, but you feel like getting to where you are right now, giving back and working with people has been great.
So rewarding. It feels good to give back. It just, my kids will tell you all the time, we ride past somebody that's homeless, I'm looking in the car for something. Coins, a pretzel, or something that I can give them. So I'm forever giving back their clothes that are too small for them, toys. You know, I'm always, you know, the babysitter, if somebody wants to go somewhere, just bring the kids over to me if you just need a day.
So if you were to provide Kia's words of wisdom about life, what would you give us?
Love God, love yourself, and you can love others. That's simple. Everything will fall in place.
That could be a t-shirt.
Yes. You have to have a higher being. I don't know what you call them, who you call them, but it has to be a higher being, somebody bigger than you. Love yourself, love others, and everything will fall in place.
Which comes from the values that you made earlier
Absolutely.
on. Again, so much in common. If my dad were right here right now, he'd hug you. Right? There is somebody bigger than you. There is
Yes.
something bigger than you.
Absolutely.
And you better believe that. You
Yes.
better recognize that.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then your family. You know, my dad has this saying that you know, you're a McGarry and you're my son. It doesn't matter if you're 43 or 14. Mm-hmm. And he used to say 2 things. If you embarrass me, I'm going to embarrass you 10
Absolutely.
times. And number 2, make me proud of you.
Yes.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Pretty simple, but very powerful things. I love it. Something bigger than who you are. And I think that really establishes
direct.
pride.
Be firm in what you say. Face your adversaries head on. Deal with them. Pray about it. Meditate over it. If you have to fuss and say some choice words at a moment, contain it and bring it back in. I'm not going to sit here like I'm just this halo type thing. I have my moments. You know, I have little people too, so I went from a big one to little one. So we have our challenges, but we work it out.
Work it out. Well, first, I appreciate you being here with me today and taking the time to do this. And two, the fact that you wore the school colors speaks volumes. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll connect again soon.
Yes, thank you for having me. Okay.
Thank you for watching our Tell Me Your Story. If you are a community member or a member of the district staff, and you're interested in being interviewed and telling your story to our staff and to our community, please email me at dmcgarry, DMCGARRY, @upperdarbysd.org, or feel free to call at 610-789-7200. We'd love to hear your story and make better community connections. Thank you.